Hello, I'm John McAleavey, and I'd like to welcome you to the second episode of the 3 Men and an SCI podcast. I'm joined, as always, by my guest hosts, Barry Munro and Sasha Rabchevsky. I hope you had a chance to listen to our maiden voyage and that you'll stay with us as we navigate through the good, the bad, the underwhelming, the lacking, the developing, and the exciting news coming from the SCI world. As it is, we are 3 gentlemen who, between us, have over 100 years of lived experience as a part of it. And so we've got so much to say. Why don't we get started? First, let me welcome my 2 guys in. Barry and Sasha, how are you, gentlemen?
Hello, John.
Hi, John. Great. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad we're able to reconvene again. And as I mentioned there, we do have so much to say. And today's topic is going to be on bladder management. And I pulled the long straw, so I'm going to go first with my story. Basically, for me, when I had my injury initially and was in the hospital, I did have to have ICs. I had to have the nurses help me with that. And I kind of knew that I was having a new existence because when I was in the emergency room, right after I had my injury, they brought me up. I remember the emergency room nurse saying, "When was the last time you went to the bathroom?" And I was looking at her like, "What are you talking about?" I didn't know what she was talking about. And then, whoop, she went in with a Foley catheter. And I thought to myself, "Whoa, we're not in Kansas anymore, Toto. This is a whole new world here." And then from there, when I got to Kessler, all throughout the acute care hospital, and then when I was at Kessler Institute for Rehabilitation up here in West Orange, New Jersey, it was I had ICs during the day.
IC. Can you explain what ICs just meant for the audience?
Yes, for the audience. IC means intermittent catheterization, and what that basically means is they take I don't know what the term would be, a tube or a device, and they have to put it, slide it in through the head of your penis. And at that point, they are able to get into your bladder, and the urine comes out, and it empties the bladder for you. Because basically, after you bang your spinal cord up, 2 of the bigger muscles in your body are your bowel and your bladder, and they don't work as they used to work. And so you have to get that out, or you will have infections. It'll get, you don't want to mess with that, because the results of a full bladder can be catastrophic, as we have all found out and we know. And so through my day, it would be, I think it was 6 times a day they were doing intermittent catheterizations for me. And we noticed.
John, can I ask because I kind of forgot your level of injury. Are you sensate in your genital areas?
Yes.
Like when somebody's catheterizing you, you can actually, that's when you said that you're not in Kansas anymore?
Yes. Yeah, I knew.
Okay.
I have feeling.
Okay. That's different because I don't know about Barry, but I don't have any sensation. So that would be kind of strange if I had somebody capping me and I felt it.
Yeah.
There's those moments when I'm very glad I don't have sensation.
and I have to tell you that when I would have different nurses, like I would always know who was going to be the gentle touch. Then there were some that would just sort of reach in there and grab hold and go to town. It was like, oh my goodness, I can feel all of this down here. Yeah. And so the good news was that we were noticing that, there were times in the day when I said, like, hey, I feel like I have to go to the bathroom. I think I have to go. So they said, and at that point I was ambulatory. I could get up and stand in front of the toilet. And one day it was like, oh my gosh, I'm peeing like I used to pee. And I wasn't emptying completely. And so that they would go in and we would start doing another term that you guys probably know, or you might know, is the PVR, which is the post-void residual. Like they would see how much was still left in my bladder. Right. And thankfully it kept going lower and lower and lower. And it got to the point where my doctor, Kirschblum, said, John, I think we're going to let you try and go through your day without having to catheterize yourself or anymore. And being, a central cord, I seeing myself was not in the cards because I have horrible hand sensation, and I don't.
Dexterity of your hands.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I
dexterity.
wouldn't be able to do
Right.
it myself. And I remember early on, like when I would go home for the weekend and the nurses weren't there, it was like my mom doing it or my sister or my dad. And it was like, oh my God, kill me. I don't want to have to do that. And so it was obviously it was a welcome addition when they told me, John, we're going to pull the plug on the ICs and we're going to let you go. And we'll see if you get infections. And knock on wood, I really did not get very many infections. And so that was, I would say for the first 26 or 27 years, I really did not have very many infections at all. And if I did, they would prescribe Cipro for me. For the most part, that was what I was taking. And I was on some drugs to help me go that were forcing the bladder to make me go. I think it was, and then it got to the point where I was going so much they wanted to curb it, so I was on another drug to stop with that. And to this day, I take a drug called terazosin. I take a 5 milligram in the morning, and then I take a 5 milligram and a 2 milligram at nighttime. And that helps me at night. I wear a condom catheter because I don't know in the middle of the night when I have to go. And so my bladder just goes when it wants to. And also before we went on the air, we were talking, I also take a drug called methenamine hipurate. Is that how you pronounce it?
That's how you pronounce it. Yes.
Good. And so that, knock on wood, has been really helping me over the years to, as I like to say, stay ahead of the law, which is bladder infections.
Right.
And so what I do is I get up in the morning, I empty my bag, I go in as much as I can. And for those of you that don't know, I can sort of hit my midsection and jump around a little bit, and it causes me to have to go some more. And then I am pretty much off to the races for the rest of my day. And that's basically how I manage my bladder. And so
you're donning a condom cap pretty much the whole day?
No, I take that off in the morning. I take that off when I get out of bed. And then thankfully I'm able to get that on and off myself. I don't have to have anybody put that on me, which is thank goodness.
Okay.
Right. And then once I take that off, I am free for the day, and I just wear, like regular underpants and regular pants, and I am.
So do you leak? So do you have issues of leakage though, John, during the day?
I don't, because I know when I have to go, and I have enough time.
Because you have sensation.
Yeah,
I see. Yeah,
and I have enough.
Do you get what we call urge incontinence? Do you feel like you have that urge at times? I mean, is that how you know when you have to go?
It is, and then I get into the bathroom, and then sometimes when I don't go for a matter of time, like I always look. For me, the magic number is about 4 hours. I have to look at the clock, and I think if I haven't gone in 4 hours, then I'll go into the bathroom and I'll start to sort of bang my midsection, and it'll cause the urge for me to go, and I'll do that. And then I have to make sure I drink enough water during the day. Sometimes you can see the color of your urine. You might may not have had too much to drink, and you need to drink some more. And it's always an ongoing battle with trying to get so much in. And then I don't want to drink too much before I go to bed because I don't want to have a full bladder. And you guys know I'm preaching to the choir here.
Sure.
Yeah. And so that's basically my bladder story in a nutshell. And now I'll turn the floor over to you, Sasha, if you want to take us through a day in the life with you and your bladder management.
Sure. I think that if I were to venture to kind of think back, I really have not changed my routine as far as intermittent catheterizations in all the time I've had it. So I from the very beginning, like yourself, woke up out of a coma and I had people giving me catheters and I didn't know what was going on. I couldn't feel it, which was very strange. And then, once I got to being by myself, the intermittent catheterization became, I don't know about you guys, but like when I had to catheterize, it was always with these complete sterile kits and you had to put gloves on and everything was sterile. Each time I had to go pee, and this was back in the 80s, and I was just like, how can this possibly be? And so I guess as time developed, what I started to do, in addition to the cost of the catheters, is I used to boil my catheters and reuse them back in the day. And I would have people helping me out. whether it was my grandmother or my mother or my sister would help me basically on a daily basis, well, say weekly basis, boil my casts, and I would put them all into, they weren't sterile, but I put them into Ziploc bags. They're plastic that are relatively sterile. And that's kind of how I did for almost 25 years. I would not get large boxes of sterile catheters because it was just, it was cost prohibitive at the time when I was in school. Also, when I went back to school, it was very difficult. And so I actually, and again, this is revealing some taboo things, is that I started to take catheters. So one of the problems I've had with catheterization throughout my life is finding bathroom stalls where you get in and you get close enough to the toilet where you can actually pee into either a receptacle or the toilet itself. Well,
Right.
I started to ask myself, forget about the middleman. I didn't want to carry around a bottle or something. So I started to take catheters and I would use parafilm wax to basically anneal them together so that I would have a daisy chain catheter, 2 in a row, that when I did catheterize, I could pee right into the toilet.
Wow,
And I live like,
you're like MacGyver.
Yeah,
You're like
MacGyver,
the bladder
exactly.
MacGyver.
That's right, MacGyver. And when I tell my doctors about that, they're horrified that you're using a catheter or stuff. But you know what? When I lived overseas, I didn't have the luxury of these things. I had to kind of adapt and use things that were available. So I would bleach and Clorox and wash them periodically, but I could not live a life, a normal, well, as much as I wanted to be call it normal, without being able to cheat the system in a way. And unfortunately for me, yeah, I did have infections of the UTI. We'll talk about that. But for the most part, as long as I was, like you're saying, John, keeping myself hydrated, keeping myself going, which is kind of half the battle, right? Because you don't want to fill yourself up.
Yes.
Because you're going to pee.
Exactly.
But for many, many years, I never had dribble. Like and I would just, my body would just, my bladder would fill up and it wouldn't void. It would be like 1,000 cc's of water and nothing would come out. And it would lead to what people know as autonomic dysreflexia. And that was my trigger for knowing when I had to pee, right?
Mm-hmm.
For years and years. Well, cut it to today is that today I still do the intermittent catheterization, but through time and the fact that certain drugs are not working anymore, like I'll list them down as we go forth, but like Betric and Gemtesa and things of this nature that are cause the bladder to spasm less, they are not as effective as they used to be. So I have to time myself like every 2 hours to make sure, and I will do where it depends, time myself so that even between my catheters that I'm not catheterization, that I'm not having any accidents.
Right.
And so in essence, then I still do intermittent catheterization at least almost, I would say, up to 6 to 8 times a day. Okay. And that there are times, though, and I'm going to be very straight with the audience, there are times where I mess in between, and that's where the PENS backup comes. But then, and that'll, from a sanitary standpoint, it's okay because it's absorbing it.
Right.
From a psychological standpoint, have your pants full of urine and you can smell it, it's just not the most appealing thing, but it's the way I survived for the last 3 or 4 years.
Yes.
And it's not glorious. And like I said, at night, I do wear a condom catheter so that I don't worry about, like you, John, I don't worry about drinking before I go to bed because I know that it's going to go into a bag. And so I will drink quite a bit of fluids before I go to bed to flush my system out.
Yes.
Okay. And and unfortunately, and it's kind of I don't know, it's catch-22, I don't get the autonomic dysreflexia that I used to get when I was younger, in my 20s and 30s or even 40s. Now that 50s and I've had operations, I've become desensitized to it as much. So
interesting.
But anyway, that kind of rounds about my routine. I've got other examples I could talk about in a moment, but I wanted to maybe hand it off to Barry and see how much deviant he is from that.
I am a deviant. And in fact, what's interesting is maybe I'm the typical aging with a spinal cord injury story. So I've evolved, and I'm not necessarily a positive way, but here's what's happened with me. I was kind of an anomaly back when I had my injury. I had what they call a high pressure bladder. So normally automatically that gets people moving into ICs, but I was voiding pretty good without a lot of residual. And I guess just to double back on what residuals mean with people, if you retain too much urine in your bladder, you're prone for infection. So that's why it's always good to get as much out as you can, and then you're less likely to have an infection with the built up of bacteria. But I was basically condom drainage. I'd have a condom put on and get through the day and change it every day and drain it into a leg bag. And that was it. I did that for years and years. In fact, I did that for the first 20 years of my injury.
Wow.
Then what was happening, I was starting to retain way too much. I mean, I was getting urodynamics done. It's a test people have for really checking out the function of their bladder and making sure it's operating properly and all that stuff. And so when I had my urodynamics, you know, people retain sometimes. They say the average able-bodied person's 400 cc, something along those lines, 500 tops. 800, you're kind of pushing it. Well, I was at the 1200 mark.
Wow.
It was getting up there. Eh? So they call it the big balloon, right? Because your bladder will just keep expanding and expanding. In fact, I heard horror stories. There's one guy retaining 3,000 cc's in the kitchen. 3,000. My God, it's like swallowing a watermelon.
He's on the Olympic team.
So the docs are pretty sick. And I was starting to get bladder infections. And I noticed that I wasn't draining as well. I was getting these infections. And infections is the point where some out there might have heard of it. Sometimes you get an infection so bad you get blood in your urine. It's really it's scarier looking than it is. Not that it's a good thing, but what it is it's the lining in your bladder is irritated, and that's on the inside causing the bleeding. So
the urothelium.
Yeah. So basically, I get and like you mentioned earlier, John, Cipro is kind of my go-to for antibiotics to this day. And in fact, I'm on it now as we talk. So what happened was the doc said to me, listen, I think you got to go to ICs. And the problem I have is I've never got used to having somebody around every 4 hours, which I would need as a quad to get that done. So I opted for an indwelling catheter. And I went on an indwelling catheter about 3 or 4 years ago, and pretty good. Not many infections really at all.
You don't mind us in a Foley catheter, just so I understand. Foley catheter, right? Okay.
Yeah. Where, for people who don't know, you insert it like a catheter in this little balloon that keeps it inside the sphincter so that it stays in place and keeps it sealed, and off you go, and you just void. But along, and I could say that up until recently, I've had some issues with infection, and it might have been because of my just changing it or whatever it is. So you're going back and forth. So I'm kind of in the middle of figuring something out right now. So stay tuned. But other than that, I've been pretty good. Now the downside of you talk to any urologist, say don't do that. You got to think a bladder is like a muscle. And it needs to be exercised. And standard use of a bladder, able-bodied, or even the way you were talking, it expands and contracts like a muscle. When you go with a Foley, it contracts and stays contracted.
It stays
to the point where it becomes. You think of crumpled tinfoil. It doesn't want to expand much, and then if you do, you get AD, as Sasha was mentioning, autonomic dysreflexia. So. These are things that are out there now, and that's I know we haven't covered everything, and Sasha, you want to talk about some of the other options, but that's probably what we've covered is the majority of what people do in the majority of the. And I can tell you, indwelling catheters is convenient. That's why I opted for that, as opposed to having an IC every 4 or 6 hours, which
right.
You know what
I guess the biggest fear, and I guess the biggest fear for people, Barry, is that. Or doctors even, is that having an indwelling Foley catheter means that there's always a route for the bacteria to get in, so to speak. Is that correct?
That's changed.
Because and it's different for women and women. Right. And women actually have a shorter urethra. So I imagine it is known that they have much more incidences like that because of that.
Guys, and we're not even doing justice to the female side of this equation because theirs is in some ways more problematic. Because of their size of their urethra and not having et cetera, et cetera.
Well, so that brings me into the segue then, because what I have found, and I just actually had a phone call to a Zoom call with somebody in England, Ireland, is that a life changer for many people for this is actually getting a suprapubic catheter. So
describe that. Do that. Describe a suprapubic to everybody. It's always good.
Right. So, I mean, the difference between an indwelling catheter is that you're going, or even the Foley, is you're going through the penis or the vagina into the urethra and you're getting the bladder access it that way. Well, for people with, in particular, women who have some issues, and also men who do not have very good hand dexterity, they choose this option because, and I'm not going to get graphic here, but basically what they do is they put a hole through your belly button, near your belly button, and kind of use some of your intestines to kind of help guide it. And then what they do is they create a hole right from your stomach, near your belly button, right to your bladder, so that you don't have to either pull out your penis or try to maneuver with your vagina to get it in there, and you go right into your belly button, and that stays. The suprapubic catheters only have to be used, changed, as I understand it, like once a month or even once every 2 months, as long as they're taken care of properly. And so that's a really big option for people. And I was talking with a quadriplegic today, a friend of mine in Ireland, how he said that was a game changer for him about 10 years ago. He's been 20 years, but he said 10 years ago he decided to go with that, and that freed him up from so much and liberated him actually from having to do the intermittent catheterizations or the more frequent changes of the Foley catheters. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's a suprapubic catheter, and many, and I have talked quite a few. Now they're very women in particular who use these a lot. And there's various ways to use this. There's also what's called a Mitronoff procedure, which is really similar to what I've just talked about. It just uses it, and especially successful in women. And they do it, they do it with the appendix. So they, instead of putting it near your belly button, they put it a little bit lower near your appendix. And they use that, again, it's just simply a conduit. Instead of your urethra, it's a conduit to access the bladder instead of going through the urethral muscles. And so it's patent. In other words, it stays open and in place, and people can use it for really. Now, the difference between this Mitronoff that I talked about and the suprapubic, Mitronoff is actually, you have to still catheterize every 4 or 5 hours or more if needed. Whereas the suprapubic is indwelling for however long that they can last. I think it's every 2 months you have to replace those. So those are very different approaches that I myself didn't really know well about until I actually got to be friends with quadriplegic women, mm-hmm. Who actually revealed these to me, and how life-saving they are and how less obtrusive they are. There's also a procedure called an Indiana pouch, where this is for people who have really problem with their bladder in general. They will reconstruct, and using your intestine, they'll reconstruct and make a bladder out of your intestine, call it an artificial bladder, and basically then they pick a stoma, just like with the other describing these other procedures. They take a stoma and they lead it to this artificial bladder. And I know a friend of mine who has had an Indiana pouch for 35 years. Because they didn't know any options back then, and they just recreated his bladder with his intestine. So again, they're very different kind of procedures, but there's always the issue of outlet. How are you going to get it out? And that's always a issue with us, right? You know, whether it's indwelling or your intermittent catheter or using a condom cath, it's that transition periods. Once you're stable, it's okay, but it's that transition period that we all have to face. As we grow older, we have to adapt also. I've had to change methods, as I'm sure, Barry, you have as well. I'm telling you as well.
Mm-hmm. That's wild.
And so what I wanted to ask before I hand that baton over, so I also have listed here on my screen a bunch. I'm not going to go over it, but do you guys use any kind of medications to help with your incontinence or help with spasticity or things of this nature with regard to your bladder program?
No. But that's a good question, because what I've been hearing just recently, for some reason, I've been living in the woods somewhere or something like that, or you guys can just say Canada. I'm wondering, I'm hearing more about Botox.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Treating the bladder for two reasons. Yeah. Both for, I guess it prevents leakage, and on the other hand, it helps with spasticity for quads. And that's something that I'd like to explore a little bit, because I got all kinds of things going on like that. The other thing, too, as I was going to mention before I get off, is there is a product out there, and I'm just talking to you, Sasha, you might want to check it out. UI Medical is pretty called Quick Change. It is a great solution for diapers or slashing depends for people that leak. Especially guys that catheter, when they get a bladder infection, you're prone to leakage because your bladder's spasming all the time. And it's a great thing and it holds up to 1,000 milliliters.
Oh, really?
So it really,
wow.
Yeah, it's really good. And they're great, and everybody loves it. A lot of athletes, wheelchair athletes, use it, and it's just taking off. And I'll plug you into these guys, but I'd like to list that if we're going to list some sites. They're great people, and they get it, and a lot of people it's kind of catching on right now. So it's a good little product.
Wow,
that's terrific.
Okay.
I know that.
So go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier what I use is the terazosin. I do the 5 milligram in the morning, and then in the 5 and a 2 at bedtime. And then
now, can you tell the viewer listeners what that is supposed to do?
What that's supposed to do?
Do you know how it's supposed?
I don't know scientifically, but what I am told and what I believe is that it is something that's supposed to induce my bladder into having the urge to go more. And so that it will help me eliminate what's still in there. Yeah.
Okay, so you're actually trying to help your micturition reflex.
Yes. Whereas in the past, I used to go a lot. So I was on something called ditropan. I'm sure you guys have heard of that one too.
I was and that's just the opposite. It makes you not go.
Exactly. So yeah.
Right. And that's what I was asking, because that's what I have traditionally been taking my life is things like ditropan, Gemtesa, oxybutynin, toluene, all to basically calm the bladder down so it doesn't leak.
Exactly.
That's what I've been. So yeah, and I'm still taking those to this day. So they call Gemtesa.
Okay.
Which,
Okay.
But again, this would be contraindicative for you,
right?
Because you don't want that.
Right. I want it out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And you know what I forgot to mention to you guys is about 4 or 5 years ago, right around when COVID hit, I got an infection. And I really wasn't able to go. It was like out of nowhere, all of a sudden I can't pee. I was like, what the heck is going on? So, so the doctors told me, all right, John, we got to figure out what's going on. Let's put a Foley in you while you're on the meds to get rid of the infection. And like I told you before, guys, I have feeling. So having that balloon in there and trying to move around, like I move my legs, I'm walking and I've got this thing sticking out, and it was the most uncomfortable thing ever. I mean, it was horrible. So thankfully I cleared the infection cleared. And I got back to, but then at that point they said, John, we want you to cath again. We want you to go back to the ICs. And they wanted me to do it like 6 times a day. And I'm like, what are you kidding? Out of nowhere, you're going to be doing this? And you know what wound up happening, guys? It was the craziest thing. The more I IC'd, the more infections that I was getting. And it was like, wait, what the heck is going on here? We had whoever was doing it. We were using gloves. We were using the swabbing with the betadine or whatever the heck that stuff is. And we were cleaning. We were being as cleanly as could be. But what happened was it turned out through the catheters in one form or another, I was actually giving myself the infection. So at that point, we decided, all right, let's stop with the ICs and see if the infections continue. And luckily for me, they went away. And it turned out like, you can be as clean as you want to be. And unfortunately, some people are just susceptible to when the catheter goes in, it's going to bring bacteria with it. And that was basically what was happening with me as I was giving myself the infections, which was weird.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
I mean, it's so different.
Yeah.
3 guys like we talk about with 3 completely different situations. It's amazing.
Sure. Yeah. That's so. I wanted to also ask. Okay, so I am taking, like I said, ditropan in the mornings. So are there any kind of medications that you're using?
Not right now.
Okay.
But I'm thinking that might be more on the horizon. The only thing I've been using is frankly like antibiotics when necessary.
Right. Okay.
It's always been Cipro.
Well, speaking of antibiotics, so John had mentioned something earlier, and I wanted to ask you, Barry, have you ever used a drug called methenamine hippurate? No. So, John, you have been introduced to this, correct?
Yes, and it's going on about. It works
well.
Yeah, it really helps me.
Well, Barry, it's something that I think it's a very old drug that people have used for many years. It's not an antibiotic. It's actually, for lack of a better explanation, it when you take it and it gets into your bladder, it turns the bacteria into formaldehyde and fixes them. It kills them, but not in a antibiotic manner. In other words, not with your immune system. I'm telling you, Barry, there have been periods where I was refractory to Cipro, I was refractory to any kind of normal antibiotic that would use, cephalexin or whatever, and I used that stuff and it cleared up in a day, like the second I took it. So it's just something to consider both your. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. And it's funny. I've been remiss here. I've been taking homeopathic treatments over the years, and I'll tell you where this came from. Introduced to a naturopath whose sister happened to be a quad. So she was very in tune to SCI and what can happen. And the one thing she had for prevention of bladder infections was, as we all know, it was a certain brand of cranberry powder. We all know cranberry powder is good, is preventative. And it was called UI Cleanse. So it was different grade. It was good. And then she also had those logenicals. It was Cantharis, which is in the 200 grade. And Cantharis, I take 2 of these little pills in the morning under my tongue and 2 at night. And the combination of both has actually kept me pretty good for over the years that way. And as people should know, we get into some of the mechanisms behind, but I still want to go back to what you're mentioning there, Sasha. I think I'd love to I've heard about that drug in the past. But the one thing that people got to know is that one thing about bladder infections, in general, for UTIs, like able-bodied people and stuff, sugar is your enemy. Sugar is your enemy. Bacteria loves it, and it craves it, and it wants it, and it grows on it. So people your best thing, and of course diuretics, too much coffee, alcohol, too much of that drains you out. Always keeping, fairly lubricated in terms of lots of water. I think we're all told the 8 cups a day lesson in rehab. Something like that. And I know people drink pitchers of this stuff, but bottom line is keeping hydrated. But there's a lot of preventative things lifestyle-wise that can help people get around this thing as well.
Yeah.
Right.
You mentioned cranberry juice. What is the deal with cranberry juice? Why is that so effective?
It's touted to work because it lowers the acidity of the urine. So basically, it allows the bacteria. It's a less hospitable environment for the bacteria to grow in. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
That's it. Now, I'll be honest with you. There have been studies that have come out that have actually said that it doesn't do good. So it's a kind of controversial thing. I think basically, if you can drink citrusy solutions, citric acid, that's what's good for you. Period. I don't think it necessarily has to be cranberry juice, but it's got to be a highly acidic kind of a thing, and it tastes pleasant at least. But cranberry juice is definitely something that is kind of a people say, I took it, but didn't get rid of the infection. It's not going to get rid of your infection.
Right.
It develops a better environment for your bladder to prevent, or if there is a bacteria, that they don't thrive in it.
Yeah. What are some other alternatives? You mentioned like citric. What would be other drinks?
You could take vitamin C. Vitamin C, I don't think people take enough vitamin C, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Calcium and vitamin C should be really a standard supplement for people with spinal cord injuries because they're really good for your immune system and also for your bladder. Okay. But the other thing about the methanium hippurate that you take and that I've been taking is that it doesn't taste good. You're not supposed to chew it because it is very bittery. Yeah, it's a bitter taste.
It's not good.
And so right. But when you take it, what it does is it dissolves in your stomach, goes to your bladder, and what it does is it fixes the bacteria or bad thing, any pathogen actually, and so it prevents it. And it's not antibiotics, so it's not an immune response, and you just pee it out. Yep. So that's the beauty of that compound. And beyond it, Barry, again, dinosaur-wise, I didn't know this until about maybe 5 years ago. It's been around for decades. Me too. Yeah. It's actually used to be a first line of defense.
We're going to send you a bottle.
Marketing in it, and that's why nobody's getting it.
We're going to send you a bottle for Christmas, Barry.
Yeah, I'm waiting.
Yeah, sure.
So, but Yeah, and so as far as the other kinds of thing, I want to go back, Barry, to your point about the Botox and give you a little history of what happened to me. So I was using Botox successfully back in 2008, 2009, 2010, where I was getting Botox injections through like getting a cystoscopy, basically like a examination of your bladder from a cameras inside. But they were, instead of just taking pictures, they were poking injections of Botox into my bladder wall. Okay. And what that did was it prevented the spasms of the bladder wall. So the Botox would kill the nerve endings so that any kind of noxious stimulus, even if you have full bladder, would not make the bladder contract, because the Botox would kind of paralyze it for a little bit. And that worked. The problem is you have to go in every 6 months. Why? Because Botox works and it goes away. Well, and that worked for me for almost 3 or 4 years without, like, I would say more like 5 years. I mean, it was a blessing in disguise, guys. I could hold up to 1,000 liters without peeing or leaking. Then I started to get Botox injections for a spasm I had in my leg, a very refractory spasm I had in my right leg. And long story short, because it was a long story, I couldn't figure out why my bladder started not working anymore, why it wasn't holding. I developed autoantibodies to Botox, and this happens to people, where all of a sudden your body recognizes the Botox, which it is foreign, it's toxic, but it builds up antibodies so that it's no longer effective. And so I basically now, Barry, this is going to what you're, I could maybe go back to Botox injections, but I have to try different types of Botox. There's A, B, there's all these various types. But if I were in your position, Barry, and you had access to it, I would highly recommend getting Botox injections into your detrusor wall, because they do cystoscopy on you probably anyway routinely. All it is once they're in there is they inject the Botox, and what's to lose is what I feel, and it would be something that I would look into if I were you.
Very good. I like it.
Yeah.
Look at I'm learning.
Yeah. Well, this is what this is all about, right? Not keeping secrets, but sharing them.
Absolutely.
It's not secrets even. It's just that we all live in our different, like you're saying, John, we all have our barriers that we have to overcome. And on top of that, we have our bladders to manage, right? There's a whole sequel of things there. And so a disability is really relative to what you could do. And this is why, Barry, I'm appreciative of you offering these things, because when one can do it, like myself can do it, you only have yourself to blame. But when you have other people that you're depending on, it's got to be stressful. It's got to be like, for instance, when somebody doesn't show up for that catheter change, and when you can't do it yourself, what do you do? I mean, what is that panic stage like, Barry? Do you have a 1-800 number you can call if it seems like that can happen? I mean, really.
Well, for me, it's been. And I did have a problem 2 Christmases ago where I had a clogged catheter. It happens, and you got to flush it out. And I was lucky; I had my partner Karen around and helped with that a little bit.
Right.
And I did. I'm trying to think what I did too. We found a temporary solution for the day. It was Christmas. Right? It's like, why are you wetting your pants? I had one time I was at an event it was like a band playing in a brewery. I think I had a beer, so it wasn't like I was going crazy. But my balloon broke. And it just at that time, all of a sudden I was wet. Yeah. I couldn't figure out why I'm so wet. I'm literally just urinating, and of course I'm getting a little dysreflexic and all that stuff. So and then you need someone around. The one thing we should talk about, just really too, that how important it is back to managing leaks and stuff, is people got to understand too, it's very important to keep a handle on the leaking and the wetness, because that can lead to pressure to skin irritation.
Right.
Well, so it's very important that people.
It really can. Yes. I'm glad you said that, because it does. It compromises the integrity of your skin. Exactly. Like if you're putting a certain amount of pressure on a bony process and it's wet and it's kind of like full of urine, it's going to be much more caustic, and it's going to lead to much more probable decubitus.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah.
You brought up your story about Christmas, Barry, a couple of years ago. I have a couple of comical, or at least one really funny bladder emptying situation is, remember I told you guys when I have to go, and I can usually hold it back for a time or two, but I got to the point where when I would drive in my car, I would have urinals with me. And there was a night that I was out with my buddies, and we were down at the New Jersey shore, and we were driving home. And I'm usually the designated driver because I really don't drink at all. So they can all have a good time, and I'm the sober one driving the crazy James Bond mobile with. We should do an episode on driving and whatnot. I mean, you should see my car. I've got the craziest stuff. So it's like 1:00 in the morning. We're on the way home, and I got to go really bad to the point where, all right, I got to pull over onto the shoulder on the Garden State Parkway, and I'm pulling out the urinal, and my friend's helping me get my pants down. And then all of a sudden I see the lights behind me. I'm thinking, oh no, please. The state trooper, New Jersey state trooper. And luckily it got to the point where I was just sort of pulling my pants up, and he looked in, and I was like, all right, take a look at my car. I've had a spinal cord injury.
Yeah.
He was like, all right, just get on your way. He didn't want to. So,
though, he had a great story to go back to the station with, that's for sure.
Without a doubt.
Right.
And I told him, I said, even if you were to ask me to get out and walk in a straight line, I couldn't do that anyway, sir, because the way I walk, I can't do that as it is on a good day.
Guys, I have used, this is off the subject, but I have used my wheelchair to get out of speeding tickets quite a few times.
Good.
Because what I'll start doing is when they pull me over, I'll start getting out of the car. Like, what are you doing? Well, I was always told to get out of the car and greet the officer. No, get back in. And then it just puts them off. Right away, you put them off, and you're like, all right, don't speed them. And plus, they can't take you into the jail. I mean, they have no space in jail.
Exactly. Exactly.
Anyway, that's unofficial, by the way. That's not an official statement.
That's off the record. Off the record for this for the police in Kentucky.
This podcast does not endorse.
That's right. That's right. But Sasha said, yeah.
So I figured, guys, we're getting to about 40 minutes or so. How about do you have any? Sasha, you would probably know better than me, I know, and Barry probably does also. Is there anything else that's exciting that's on the horizon, or anything that any parting information you want to leave us with?
Well, okay, yeah, I'll give some information that's just being released. Though I am part of a nonprofit called Next Step Raleigh. It's located in North Carolina, in Raleigh, North Carolina. And we, as a nonprofit, we have actually just purchased our first ARC EX, the new thing that's come out for people with quadriplegia. It's a transcutaneous spinal cord stimulator you put on your back or your neck even, and over time it helps facilitate hand use.
From the people at Onward, right? From Onward?
Yes, exactly. From Onward. Yep, that's exactly it. And so we've negotiated with Onward to get a price down. I won't go into all the details. It's not cheap, but here's the thing: is that we already know, and this is a call out to all the people in the centers that are thinking about this. There is a return on investment for those things that is going to be exponential, because while they may cost a lot, there's lots of people that are going to be using it. And the more people get used to it, and Barry, this is what's interesting, hospitals won't touch this with a 10-foot pole, but rehab centers are all over the place starting to use them, and hospitals are sending their patients out to them. Well, it's going to be a matter of time before they start using them in the hospitals, I would imagine, hopefully. And I just think that this is a new era or new wave, that we have a product now that is FDA approved that can be used by people. But the catch-22 is, how do we get it to them? Hospitals aren't giving it to them yet. So it's basically nonprofit organizations are what's going to lead this country.
Now I'm going to jump in
the world and in North America, for that matter. Sorry, Barry?
I'm going to make a suggestion, guys. I think this is absolutely another podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Epidural and transcutaneous stim.
Yes.
As you know, it's the sexy thing. And just the one thing, there is a lot of anecdotal evidence that it does help improve bowel and bladder control.
And that's where I was going with this, Barry. Yeah. Exactly. Yep. That's where I was going with this, because it's indicated for arm and hand use and leg stuff. But my gosh, the anecdotal stories that are coming out are incredible.
Let me tell you.
So that's,
and I'll leave you with this. I actually had a Zoom meeting with one of the folks at Onward today. He's going to come on my Quadcast podcast and tell me all about it. But I actually had an opportunity to demo the Arc EX back. Oh boy, about 6 or 8 months ago, and it was, listen, I'm 33 years in, you guys are longer than me, so I'm a skeptic, right? I'm skeptical that this is going to work. But if there's something out there, I saw the clinical trials and people are doing stuff and they're opening beer bottles and they're opening, a can of peanut butter. And yeah, I could see that. So I tried it. They put it on. I had it on for about 55 minutes. And I have to tell you that I have really basically maybe 1 or 2 fingers that still work out of my 10. And the 2 that are really left town a long time ago are my pinkies. So I actually had like sensation in my pinkies and was able to sort of move them a little bit after I tried this, and the effects of it lasted for me. And this was only about 55 minutes. It lasted for a couple of weeks. I just felt different. Wow. I felt like I was looser. I felt like I had a little bit more.
It tells you what you can do.
Yeah.
There is something else, guys. There's another, Sasha, you might have heard of it, is the company's called EG427, which is, I'm sure the company will change their name. Mm-hmm. And they're out of Europe, and they're just embarking on I want to stage 2, or maybe even looking at a 3 clinical in the U.S. on it's a drug for bladder control, for SCI.
Wow.
Uh-huh. So and the preliminary results, I think, as much as they can talk about, is been pretty positive. It's a real deal. More so, you don't hear a lot of that nowadays, but just stay tuned for that one. This is early days, but there is a medication coming up that somehow brings together some kind of bladder control for people with spinal cord injury, which is interesting. Very interesting.
Right. And I will not disclose too much more because I'm on the board, but Dignified Therapeutics is coming up with 2 compounds for both bladder and bowel.
Terrific.
On-demand drugs, oral on-demand drugs that have a half-life that's real short. You do it, you get your business, you keep going about your day. So, Barry, I hear you. We need to do a podcast about just this stuff.
Yeah. Yep. There's some really exciting stuff on the horizon. This is good. You're giving me...
It's a good time. Yeah. Yeah, there's a light. There's a light at that end of the tunnel in the freight train. So it's better than it was. Like, we can all agree to that, I think.
Without question. Right. Without question. Yeah. And what a great way to end it with some positive and exciting stuff that's on the horizon. And so episode 2 is now in the books. We want to thank all of our listeners for joining us. Again, Barry Munro, Sasha Rabchevsky, and John McAleavey. You'll have to tune in again for our next episode, when a date will be determined and a subject will also be determined. In the business, we like to call that a tease. So you'll have to check back to hear what we're going to talk about next time. But again, thank you for listening to the 3 Men and an SCI podcast. And we look forward to having you with us again next time.